right. I am going to actually bring my notes over here. All right. Yay. Okay. Happy day. All right, so this is going to be some basic class, just basic yoga poses, a little bit less flow, but it's going to feel amazing. We're going to open up the chest, front of the body. It's going to be awesome. So we're going to start in tabletop position, so quadruped position. So maybe knees underneath hips and wrist underneath shoulders. But if you have some wrist issues, you might take the hands maybe a little more forward. And then you can have the toes tucked, or you can have the tops of the feet on the mat. That part doesn't matter. But we're going to start with that basic cat-cow. So just maybe close your eyes and allow yourself to feel dramatic about this as you exhale and push the floor away and really round and tuck that chin. And then inhale, look up and lengthen. So you can do this a few times, just kind of at your own pace, just really feeling the spine and the muscles to help pull the pelvis forward and take the pelvis back. All right, let's find our neutral spine. You're going to take your knees apart a little bit, toes together, and sit back to child's pose. And stretching those arms forward. I want you to think about breathing into the back of the rib cage and the sides of the rib cage. Full lungs. But now we're going to move from this child's pose to tabletop position. So you'll inhale, just keep your feet or knees the way they are. Inhale, come up to table. Exhale, back to child's pose. Inhale, up to table. Exhale, child's pose. Inhale, table. Exhale, child's pose. Let's come back up to table. Take your feet apart and push back downward facing dog. So try to lift both knees at the same time as you take your downward facing dog. So let's talk about the alignment of downward facing dog here. You want your hands wide on your mat. Most of you, your pinky fingers will be at the edge of the mat. That's not a set rule. That's just most of you. And then your feet, most of us like to have about hip distance apart. Again, you can have them a little bit wider, a little bit closer. It's totally up to you. But you want to make sure that your pelvis is tilted so that your butt sticks up in the air. So bend your knees a little bit, everybody, and then tilt your butt up. And then keep your pelvis like that and straighten your legs. If your pelvis tilts, you need to keep your knees bent. So that's tight hamstrings, but you can really feel that in the low back if we don't have the proper alignment there. Let's go ahead and look between the hands. Walk your feet up or your hands back, whatever works for you there. And keeping the knees bent if you need to. Let's look up, lengthen halfway. Exhale, bow forward. Now just roll all the way up to standing. Good. Let's stretch arms up overhead, press palms, arch back, look up. And then exhale, take your forward fold. You can swan dive down or hands right down the center. Now lengthen again, inhale here. Good. Exhale, bring your hands to the floor. Step your left foot way back. We're coming into a lunge. So your front foot should be framed by your two hands. Maybe walk that foot up there a little bit. Now lengthen the heart forward. So look forward, lengthen forward. Your hips are forward and down. Breathe, engage the back leg. Think about lifting the back leg from your inner thigh. Pull the belly in, push off of your back toes, step up to the front of your mat. Lengthen on that inhale. Exhale, now right foot steps way back. The bigger step you take here, the less fidgeting you have to do once you're in the posture. So heart pulls forward, shoulders away from the ears, engaging that right leg. Good. Push off the back toes, come back to your forward fold, step up to your forward fold. Lengthen, inhale. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, come all the way to standing, stretch up, arch back, look up. Good. Exhale, arms down by your side. Let's inhale, stretch arms up. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, lengthen. Now exhale, hands to the floor, step back to plank pose. Let's talk about plank pose. Again, feet, most of us like to have about hip distance apart, but you can have them closer, a little bit farther apart. In your plank pose, you're pushing the floor away right from underneath your armpits and shoulders. Push the floor away there. Now shift your weight way forward in the tippy toes. Lower your knees and then come all the way down onto your mat. Chest, everything down. Set up for a little cobra pose here. Releasing the tops of your feet to the mat. Squeeze your legs together. Inhale, lift for cobra. Good. Exhale, relax and push back to downward facing dog. Now look between the hands. Walk your feet forward or your hands back. So if you've got really tight hamstrings, you might have to walk the hands back to the feet. Lengthen on the inhale here. Good. Exhale, bow. Good. And then inhale, come all the way to standing. You could come up with a straight spine if you like, and then arms down by your side. Take your feet about hip distance apart. We're going to start Utkatasana with hands on the thighs. So we'll just sit the butt back. Like sit way back, yeah, weight in the heels. And then stretch your arms forward and hook your thumbs. Hook your thumbs. Now, trying your very best, lift the chest. You're going to bring the arms up by the ears with your thumbs hooked. Yeah, good. Keep the belly pulled in. Weight in the heels. Good. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, lengthen. Good. Exhale. Now take your left foot, step it back again, way back into that lunge. Good. Now this time, bring your hands to your front thigh, your right thigh. Settle here. Pull the belly in. Good. Now bring the hands behind the head. Interlace your fingers behind the head. Your thumbs are there at the base of the skull. Squeeze your elbows toward one another. So in the front. Wrap your elbows around to the front. Yeah, there we go. Now pull your belly in. Really engage the legs. Lift up out of the waist and start to push your head into your hands as you curl back and look up. Push your head into your hands. Lift up out of the waist. Curl back. Look up. Look back. Good. And then bring the head forward. Hands to the floor. Step back to downward facing dog. We'll do that on the other side. We're going to step or jump your feet forward or walk your hands back to your feet. However you get there in a forward fold is fine. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, hands to the floor. Step back with your right foot. Big step back. Settle here. Make sure your legs are engaged. Bring your hands to your front thigh. Settle here. Breathe. Good. Now bring the hands behind the head. Interlace your fingers. Wrap the elbows forward. You're pushing your head into your hands. Lift up out of the waist and start to curl back. Start to lift the head or take the head back and look up. Yes. Lift up, curl back. Good. Come back to center, hands to the floor, step back to downward facing dog. Breathe. We're going to come forward to plank pose and then come back to down dog. So try not to adjust too much difference there. And now pull back to downward facing dog. Inhale forward to plank pose. Now pull the belly in. From there, take it back, downward facing dog. Good. One more time. Inhale, plank pose. Pull the belly in, lift the hips up, downward facing dog. Bring your knees to the mat and sit to child's pose. Relax. Breathe. Relax the jaw, space between the teeth. So this week I've been talking about abundance and the idea that there is enough and we are enough, right? So everybody's been bombarded with these messages of there's not enough, and yoga reminds us that there is. When we feel like there's not enough, the anxiety, the shortness of breath starts to happen. So we get on the mat, we practice the deep breathing. We remind ourselves, yes, there is enough, and I am enough. Come forward all the way onto your belly. So just come forward, lie down on your belly. We're going to take cobra pose again, but we're going to have the hands behind the head, just like we did on the other posture. But instead of curling the elbows forward, this time we're going to try to lift the elbows up towards the ceiling. So you're going to push your head into your hands, squeeze your legs together, and inhale, lift up. Push your head into your hands, lift up. Chest is lifted. Breathe. Try to lift those elbows towards, yeah, good. And slowly relax. Bring your hands by your sides. Turn your head to the right and relax. So we'll do that again. So it's probably better to have the forehead on the mat to start with. So bring the forehead to the mat and then bring your legs together. Bring your hands back behind your head again. Interlace your fingers. So thumbs are right there at the base of the skull. Good. Now, inhale, push your head into your hands. Lift up. Lift the elbows up. Lift up. Yes. Breathe. Gorgeous. Slowly relax down. Turn your head to the left. Arms down by your sides. And breathe here. Try to breathe into the back body. Now propping yourself up on your left forearm. So bring your left forearm in front of you and prop yourself up. Yep. So your elbow is underneath the shoulder. Yeah, good. Now reach back with your right hand and get the top of your right foot. Now you're trying to press the right hip down. What you're going for here is a thigh stretch. So if you're super flexible, you can go ahead and try to bring that heel, the right heel, to the outside of the right hip. And being mindful of the knee. If this goes into your low back, you can relax the head down. So you don't want to feel any crunchy there. If you're feeling pretty good here, you can actually just think about drawing that forearm back and lifting the chest. Yeah. Pressing that right hip down. Now, without letting it snap, release that right leg. Switch it out. So prop yourself up on the right forearm. Left hand comes back. Now, if you're at home and you can't get the foot and you have a towel or a necktie or a strap, you could always put it around the foot here. So I know some of you really have tight quads. The runners, the cyclists, sometimes they have the tight quads. Can't get the foot, no worries. But you're trying to pull down the heel. Super flexible people might be able to pull that heel to the outside of the left hip. And then that forearm, well, first of all, if it bothers your low back, drop your head down. If you're good here, you can isometrically drag that forearm back and pull the chest forward. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. And then release. And then just stack your forearms and place your forehead on your forearms and relax. Maybe shake your hips side to side. And then let's take it back to downward facing dog. So tuck your toes, lift your hips up and back for downward facing dog. Let's look between the hands. Either step your feet up or your hands back to your feet. Look up, lengthen. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, let's come all the way to standing. Stretch up, arch back. And then arms down by your side. So reset, chest up, shoulders relaxed, belly in, tailbone down. Inhale, stretch up. Exhale, bow forward. Good. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, left foot steps way back again. Low lunge here. Good. Go ahead and bring that left knee down. Good. Bring your hands to your front thigh. Now your hips are forward and down. So you don't want that left hip stacked over the left knee. You want your hips forward and down. You're pulling the belly in. Now we're going to do the how wonderful arms. So you bring the arms out. Palms up, elbows in. Take the elbows forward, shoulders back. Imagine that you're pushing your head into your hands as you take the head back and the chest lifts. Yeah, how wonderful. Nice. Good. Bring the head back to center, hands to the floor. Lift your back knee, tuck your back toes, step up to the front of your mat. Lengthen. Exhale, let's take that right foot back. Step it way back. Good. Don't be afraid to take that big step back. Bring your right knee down. Hands to your front thigh. Good. So you're pushing into that thigh, and that's going to help you lift up out of the waist, out of that hip. Yeah. And then we can bring the arms down by the sides and just let them dangle first. You can kind of shake the hands here a little bit. And then bend the elbows, palms up. It's like you have two trays in your hands there. And then you're going to take the elbows forward and the shoulders back. And imagine that you're pushing your head into your hands as you're curling back. Yeah. Breathe. Nice. Look forward, hands to the floor, lift your right knee, tuck your right toes, step to the front of your mat. Good. Lengthen on that inhale. Exhale, bow forward. Let's inhale, come all the way up to standing, stretch up, arch back, look up. What a great day to be alive. Arms down by your side. All right, turn and face the camera and step wide. Really wide stance here. Good. And stretch the arms out. Let's relax the arms down. And then to reset that. So when you lift the arms, you want to make sure that you're using deltoids here to help lift the arms. So you stretch the fingers down a little bit and then bring the arms up halfway. So you want to feel the neck and shoulders relax there. You can turn the toes in slightly, but toes need to be forward, and then and then exhale, bow forward. Now try to keep your legs nice and straight here, and then bring your hands to the floor. You can hold on to the outside of the feet or the heels or your big toes, or just leave your hands on the floor. Now if your legs aren't straight, you're working on getting the legs straight first. So if you need to have the knees bent in order for the pelvis to be in a good position, bend those knees. But when your legs are straight, you start to lean forward a little bit, maybe take your bind. You breathe. Start to bend the elbows and shoulders away from the ears. Relax the jaw, space between the teeth. Good. Bend your knees. Bring your hands to your hips. With a strong belly and a flat back, you come all the way back up. So nice. Good. Good. Keep your legs there. Stretch your fingers down a little bit. Arms come up halfway again. Turn your right toes out to the front of your mat, or whatever it is to the right. It might be the back of your mat. Bend your right knee. Good. So take a long stance here. Make sure your legs are really wide. Yeah, and your left leg is really engaged. That should be the back leg. Now reach out over that right thigh. Bring your forearm to your thigh. Bring your left hand to your hip. Good. Now I want you to think about the right butt cheek scooping under, and then roll the chest open. Now take the left arm towards the ceiling, hand towards the ceiling, or you can sweep it in front of the chest and bring it by the left ear. Bend your right knee deeper. If you don't have to change anything in the hips or the torso, and you can bring your right hand to the floor, bring your right hand to the floor. If you can take it to the outside of the foot, you take it to the outside of the foot. But listen, if you had to close off the chest to get that hand down, then bring that forearm back to the thigh. Roll the chest open. Good. Breathe. Pull your belly in. Inhale, we come up. Hands on the hips. Straighten your right leg. Turn your right toes forward. And keep your elbows squeezing towards one another. Let's exhale, bow forward. Forward fold again with hands on the hips. Oh, nice. Nice pop. And then hands to the floor when you're ready. Or take your bind. Hook your toes, outside of feet, heels. But listen, y'all, if you've got tight hamstrings, don't be taking a bind here. Just keep your hands on the floor, maybe even grab some blocks or something. If you have something, some books, and you can put your hands there and you can get those legs straight and start to open up the back of the legs. Especially if you sit a lot for your job, you might have tight hamstrings. All right, again, bending the knees a little bit, hands to the hips, come all the way up, pull belly in, nice. Good, keep your feet there, turn your left toes out, bend your left knee, and sink the hips down. Now, before we move the arms, we're going to I want you to stick your butt back. And I want you to think about widening. Yes, it's pretty. It's pretty. It feels pretty. Now, I want you to keep your right inner thigh back, but I want you to scoop your left butt cheek under. Oh, hey. And then forearm to thigh. Yeah. Yeah. And then maybe you sweep that left or right arm up, or you bring the hand to the hip. You can keep the hand on the hip. Now, if torso doesn't change, nothing changes, and you can bring the left hand down, maybe you have a block there waiting for you. That would be okay. You can go inside or outside of the foot. But you're rolling the chest open. You can keep the right arm fingers touching towards the ceiling there if you like. Breathe. Open that chest a little bit more. Pull the belly in. Inhale, let's come up. Hands on the hips. We got one more. Forward fold. Turn those toes in. This time, interlace your hands behind the back. Arch open, lift the chest. Exhale, bow forward. Nice. Breathe. Now, something that you can do here is to get a little bit more range of motion maybe is to bring the hands to the low back and relax those hands on the low back and let your shoulders come up to the ears. Just kind of let gravity take over. And then lift your shoulders up towards the ceiling and then squeeze those shoulder blades together. You might be able to lift your hands a little bit higher then. We just created a little space in the shoulder. Yeah. Pull the belly in. Inhale, we come up. Good. Release your hands. Step your feet together and face the front of your mat. Very good. Let's inhale, stretch arms up. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, lengthen. Let's step back to that plank pose again. So in plank pose, the heels are still, the energy is still going back through the heels. Push the floor away. You're thinking about almost rounding the upper shoulder area a little bit. Now, see about just lifting your right leg off of the mat a couple of inches. Breathe. Make sure head's not sagging. Release that right leg and lift your left leg. Oh, hey. Breathe. Relax the jaw. Nice. Bring that left leg down. Bring your knees down. Sit back, child's pose. Relax. Knees can be together or apart for your child's pose. All right, let's come forward all the way onto your belly again. And we're going to take Dhanurasana bow pose. So we're familiar with bow pose, and I lost my music. So chin on the floor, reach back. Now, if you can't get the tops of both of your feet, we're going to do it 2 times. So just get 1 foot, yeah? Now, if you can't get 1 foot even, no worries. You can roll onto your back and do bridge pose. So it's the same idea, just different position here. So if you have both feet, you're trying to get your knees as close as you can, and you're relaxing the shoulders. Yeah. Now, slowly, gently kick back and kick up. Kick your feet into your hands. When you kick back, your chest will lift. When you kick up, your knees will lift. You might roll forward onto the belly a little bit. Good. Lift up, look up, open up that chest. Nice. Slowly release. Good. Relax, turn your head to the right, arms down by your side. Breathe. So if you're only doing one leg at a time, you can prop yourself up like we did for the thigh stretch, right? You can prop yourself up on the opposite elbow and then get that leg, and basically you're doing kind of in between the thigh stretch and one side Dhanurasana. So let's do that again. So maybe you're taking the other side, but maybe you try to go for both feet again, because sometimes you might not get it the first time, but you get it the second time. Chin on the floor. Try to get the knees in as close as you can. Now, kick your feet into your hands. Lift your chest. Look up. Yes. Abundance. There is enough, and I am enough. Kick. Kick your feet into your hands. Slowly come down. Turn your head to the left. Relax. So here you might just kind of shake your hips side to side. Sometimes that feels good. It relaxes the low back. Have your hands underneath your shoulders now. Push back to child's pose, counter pose, or bow pose. Really try to get your hips down. So the question is always, should I get my head down? Is it more important to have my head touching the mat or my butt touching my heels? In my opinion, butt touching heels. If your head doesn't touch the floor, I'd rather see you have a block underneath your forehead or stack your fists and rest your forehead on your hands and get your hips down towards your heels. You're going to just feel a bigger stretch in the low back, sacrum area, hips. Now, lift your palms up, so come up into spider fingers. And lift your armpits up towards the ceiling and let the spine sink between the shoulder blades. Now, you'll have to lift your head a little bit. You're going to walk your fingers over to your right. Watch for your water bottle there. And over to the right. And probably your left hand might come just barely off of the mat there. And you're going to breathe into that left side. You're feeling left side longer than right side. You're trying to get that left hip down towards the left heel. And then come back to center. Walk it over to the left. Now try to get that right hip down to the right heel. Right arm reaches. Breathe into that right rib cage. All right, come back to center. Push back to downward facing dog. Good. So talking a little bit more about the alignment of downward facing dog. Your hands, so I've done like 500 gazillion million downward facing dogs, and I always look at my hands just to see where they're at. My fingers spread. Now, there's a different alignment here for your hands downward facing dog. Super tight shoulders or wrist injury, you might turn the hands out a little bit, right? But generally speaking, like the crease of your wrist is going to line up with the front of your mat. So, but again, you can kind of play with that a little bit, position of your hands. Now, what we want is the hips high and the heels low. Do your heels have to touch? No. They may never touch. And you can have the most open hamstrings and they still might touch just by the design of your ankle. You want to pull the belly in, and you also want to pull the bottom of the rib cage in. So if you let the rib cage poke out, you might be dumping into the shoulders. So we don't want that. We want strong arms. You're pressing into the base knuckle of your finger. Good. Let's look between the hands. Step or jump your feet forward or walk your hands back. Look up, lengthen. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, come all the way to standing. Stretch up, arch back. And arms down by your side. Good. So chest is lifted, shoulders relaxed, belly in, tailbone down. There is enough, and I am enough, right? Abundance. And the key to abundance is generosity. So whatever it is that you need more of, think about giving that more away. Let's inhale. I know it seems like counterintuitive. Inhale, come up, but it really is that unity mindset instead of division. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, step back to plank pose. Good. Shift the weight forward, lower the knees, bend the elbows straight back, come all the way down onto your belly, all the way down. Yes, good. Squeeze those legs together. Little baby cobra pose here. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, relax. One more time. Inhale, lift up. Good. Exhale, relax. Push back to child's pose. And now we're going to stand up on your knees for camel pose. So just come up onto your knees, and you can have your knees and feet about hip distance apart. I'm not sure why my music keeps cutting in and out. Have we had an issue with that? Yeah, I don't know. Let me see. It says I am. I'm not sure why that's happening. But anyway. All right, so camel pose. Feet and knees about hip distance apart. So if you have like really sensitive knees, you could always, a little hack is to roll up your mat so that you have more cushion under the knees. The other thing is you can grab a towel. They have those little mats specifically for the knees here. You have one of those, or a towel or a blanket or something like that will work as well. Okay. And you can have your toes tucked, or you can have the tops of the feet on the mat. So toes tucked, what's that going to do? It's a good stretch for your toes. Also, if you're almost touching the heels but not quite, you can always tuck the toes, and that'll give you a little bit more space. So hands on the hips, fingers down, thumbs out. You're going to push down into your knees and push your hips forward. Squeeze your elbows toward one another. Now lift up out of the waist, and imagine that you have your hands behind your head, and you're pushing your head into your hands as you're taking the head back. Yeah, and then start to curl back, and then just give it a little test run. Maybe right hand to right heel and left hand to left heel. Pause at any moment. We're going to do it twice. If you can only get one heel, you're going to stretch the opposite arm up towards the ceiling. Breathe. Push down into your knees and push your hips forward. Lift your chest. Yes, there is enough, and I am enough. Slowly now, lift your head, hands back to the hips. Nice. Sit back to child's pose. Nice and slow. You go back to child's pose. So camel pose. A lot of things can come up with camel pose. Fear, nauseous, because we are stretching the stomach. It's hard to breathe because we're stretching. A lot of us are just tight in the front body here. So when we stretch and open up the front body, it might be tighter here for us, right across the ribs and the lungs, so it might be hard to breathe. So little sips of air will help. If you're fortunate enough, you can take those big, deep breaths, great. But if not, you're still breathing. Don't hold the breath. All right, let's come to second set of camel pose. So come up on your knees again. And again, toes can be tucked or tops of the feet on the mat. Hands on your hips. Squeeze your elbows toward one another. Lift your chest. Imagine that you have your hands behind your head and you're pressing your head into your hands. Take your head back. Pause here. Take your eyes back. If you're good here, both hands to the heels. I'm okay if the hips go back a little bit to get the heels. But once you get the heels, you've got to push your hips forward. You're pushing down into your knees and push your hips forward. Now, little sips of air here. Breathe. Nice. Slowly, hands back to the hips. Head comes up last. You sit back to child's pose. Nice and slow. Breathe into the sides, the back of the rib cage. Settle. Relax your face. Such a grounding pose here, but I will tell you that when I first started yoga, this was not an easy pose for me. Child's pose was not. I thought it was horrible. So it may not be grounding for you if you're just starting a practice, but eventually it becomes kind of home base. And you can come here, catch your breath, and ground yourself. Let's go ahead and sit up and bring your legs around to the front. And scooch forward on your mat so you can lie down on your back. and we're going to take legs up the wall. I think you guys are okay in this position, yeah. So you're lifting your legs straight up. Now, if you have tight hamstrings, this is going to be super challenging. So you can bend your knees, you can hold on to the backs of your thighs. I like to have the hands underneath the hips just to elevate the hips a little bit. If you're home and you have a pillow, slide it underneath your hips to elevate the hips here. If you have a shoulder stand practice, you know shoulder stand, you could do shoulder stand. But just be mindful of shoulder stand if you're not sure. Don't just kind of think, oh yeah, I used to do that when I was a kid, I can do that now. Might not be a good idea. So you can just do legs up the wall right here. And you can close the eyes here. You could move your feet. You can squeeze and release your toes. Roll the ankles. If you have a block at home and you're placing that underneath your sacrum, you want it to go right at the top of your butt. You don't want it to be on your low back. It should feel like you're about to fall off of the block. So you'll place it there. Same with the pillow. Pillow, you'll have a little bit more range there. Going upside down every day, good for the lymphatic system, good for the nervous system, good for insomnia. If you have trouble sleeping, you can always do this in bed. Just turn yourself around, put your legs up your headboard or the wall. So I don't have a headboard. You can turn the legs up to the wall, stuff some pillows underneath your hips. Now, I'll warn you, if you're married and your spouse walks in, they might get a little excited if they see you with your legs up. They'll be like, whoa, what are we doing today? Disclaimer. So take notice, everyone, when you're watching the news or commercials. I forget now, it's like within the first 2 hours of the morning, if you're out and about, I think it's like we see like 2,000 images of marketing, whether you're just checking your email and then getting in the car driving somewhere. I don't know, there was some kind of huge number there in a statistic. But keep in mind and watch for that, the message of there's not enough. And ultimately what that feeling is I'm not enough then. I have to have this. I have to look this way. I have to have that. And yoga says there is enough and you are enough. It doesn't mean you don't want to change. It just means that right here, right now, I'm okay. And we'll bring the feet to the mat. And if you're at home and you have something underneath your hips, release that. And then just hug your knees into your chest, nice and soft here. And then bring your feet back to the mat. And then take your right heel on top of your left knee. We're going to do the figure 4 stretch. So you'll lift your left foot off of the mat, reach between your legs, and hold on to the back of your left thigh. Now lower the head and shoulders back down, maybe tuck your chin a little bit. Try to flex both feet here. Good. You're trying to get your right elbow as close as you can to your belly. Try to wiggle it down in there. Now I want you to pull with your hands. It's like you're trying to touch your big toe to your forehead, but you're not really trying to do that. You're not lifting your head. You're pulling with your hands, and at the same time, you're pushing your right elbow into your right thigh and pushing it away. So there's a pull and there's a push. Now keeping everything just the way it is, you're going to push your thigh into your hands, and it's like you're trying to make a footprint with your left foot on the wall across from you, and your tailbone You're trying to get the tailbone down. So your low back might lift up just a little bit, and that's going to just help create that natural curve that we have in the lumbar spine. And then go ahead, release that left foot down, release that leg, cross the right leg all the way over so thighs are touching. Yeah, and then take your knees to the left, bring your arms out like airplane wings, turn your head to the right. Close the eyes here, should be relaxed, twist. This song, this mantra, this music is kind of the explanation in Sanskrit, the explanation of Namaste. The light in me sees the light in you. I see you. I honor you. All of those good feels. Let's take the head back to center, pull your belly in, bring your knees back up, and we uncross and we switch legs. So your left heel will come on top of your right knee, and lift your right foot off the mat, reach between the legs, and your left arm is going to be between the legs and hold on to the back of your thighs. So walk your hands down and your elbow down so that you get into that crease of your left hip as close as you can. Yeah. So you're pulling in, flex both feet, pull in, but push the left elbow away. Yeah. Now keep everything the way it is. Now you're just pushing your thigh into your hands. You're flexing that right foot, and it's like you're trying to press your right foot on the wall opposite of you. So your pelvis might tilt a little bit. The low back might come up a little bit. So push away with your foot. Yeah. Good. And then release that foot to the mat. Release that leg. Cross your left leg all the way over right leg. Take your knees to the right, arms out like airplane wings. Turn your head to the left. Pull your belly in, bring your knees back to center, head back to center, uncross. And again, just hug your knees into your chest, rock side to side. So rocking calms the nervous system. So if you're feeling like there's not enough, you have some anxiety, whether it be money, material things, love, respect, rock yourself and just tell yourself there is enough and I am enough. And a couple of things will happen is if it's material things, they'll make more, or they'll make something different and you'll love it even more, or you will discover that you really didn't need it anyway. So that's the beauty of that. Go ahead and bring your knees or feet to the mat. Lift your toes and slide your heels out to the corners of your mat. Tuck your shoulder blades underneath you. Relax your eyes. Relax your jaw. Reminding ourselves that Shavasana or Savasana is a pose of surrender. We come here and we have the feeling of acceptance that we might not agree and we might not understand, but we accept that things are as they should be. When the soul lies in that grass, and then there's this little lift in the heart that reminds us there is enough. and I am enough. Abundance. The Sanskrit word for abundance is shrim. 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 You can just chant Om Shrim. But there's a beautiful mantra that's a little bit longer. Om Shrim Maha Lakshmiye Namaha. And basically that means abundance for all. That's a very short explanation of it. Om Shrim Maha Lakshmiye Namaha. There is enough, and I am enough. Stay here as long as you like. Maybe noticing the sounds. Maybe you're lucky enough to hear birds, Mother Nature. But maybe you're hearing the humming of an appliance. Maybe the sound of your own breath. Maybe the beat of your heart. I love y'all. Namaste.